because I'm still kind of bowled over by the associations I'm making, and I'm just wondering, well, are they legitimate? Have I simply had just enough time over the years with one artist's work or another to be able to make that leap? Are the links obvious? Or should they be? Maybe it's abstract enough so that links are made on, you know, a multitude of levels, that everyone can find their own thread, you know, to piece this together. I'm not sure yet. What do you think? One of the themes, in a very loose way, was dealing with borders, and there are many ways of approaching that, from physical, geographical borders to political borders, and those that are absolutely imaginary. Whether it's an artist working as in a form of reportage, making drawings in the boreal forest north of Quebec City, or if it's someone like Will Kwan, who is looking at the way the Chinese diaspora has been proliferating around the globe through the HSBC Bank, and what that means if he focuses, for example, within that culture, on death rituals. So transgressing borders, acknowledging borders that are geographical and disappearing. Most of the artists could conceivably fit in a way, whether they want to or not. So I think we've succeeded that way, in a certain way, and that's maybe just
breaking down borders and bringing people together.
I guess so, or at least opening up debates around borders. In the end, you can intellectualize as much as you want and hold together a show on that basis, of course. You could produce an exhibition called The Hand, for example, and all of the works somehow bear a relationship to the hand, handmade, X, Y, and Z, the hand's sort of ability to connect, etc., etc. It can be very on a very publicly accessible level. But beyond that, you can really throw caution to the wind and just, I think, you know, work very intuitively and hopefully surprise yourself, you know, both through failures and successes, I think. And I'm interested in that sort of fine line between failure and success. I hope I'm still as interested as I think I am in that fine line. I was interested in coming here to think about, at least to think about the context for a Canadian Biennale in Montreal, in Quebec, as part of Canada, but in a very unique cultural milieu that's been established here over the last 400 years. But I did want to focus on mostly Canadians. We don't have our own Biennale at this point. The Biennale de Montreal has played that role to a certain extent, but very limited extent. It's been about Montreal. It's been about its connections to Europe. It's been about a certain political dynamic. And so it wasn't really operating in the way I thought a Canadian Biennale might. So I wanted to certainly be able to go against the grain. Albania has a Biennale. 200 other centers from Albania to Melbourne, Australia, have biennales. Well, I wanted to try to be inclusive in a way so that I would acknowledge other curators working here who, for the most part, with the established institutions, are from my generation or are a little bit older, and probably at the time I thought would be thinking about certain issues that are uncommon, I think, across Canada and in some cases around the world in terms of what is contemporary art. there was a sense that I would have to feel my way through the politics of the visual arts here in Quebec, as well as try to pull in as many collaborators as possible. So that, for example, when I approached Louise Dedy, I found out that she was already working with David Altmaid on an exhibition that would open sometime just before David's presentation at the Venice Biennale for the Canadian Pavilion in Venice in June of 2007. So I very much wanted to, of course David was on my list, I very much wanted to then see if UQAM and Louise Dedy would shift their opening date slightly to coincide with our proposed opening date, and they were very happy to do so. Sylvie Chabert, then, who is a curator at the Banff Centre, came to work with the Sadie Bronfman Centre. The Cinémathèque Québécoise was open to presenting a video work, video installation, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's then that you have a very considered exhibition as part of the Biennale. So I was hoping, you know, by simply being here as an outsider, we could establish that as a bit of a template for other curators to be involved. The Musée d'Art Contemporain was not interested in participating for various reasons, which is unfortunate. The Musée des Beaux-Arts with Stéphane Akan was interested, but interested in a limited way. They provided one space that is maybe 700 square feet or less. And that was it. No other space was available. So some of the other significant spaces, I think, given more time, perhaps more time to prepare, might have worked with us. There is a certain experiential quality to working through the exhibition from room to room. Somehow, too, there's a strange symbiosis amongst the artists. There was a great sort of level of conviviality amongst them. So that, strangely enough, there's a weird sort of shared sensibility that somehow runs as a thread through these works that might be seen as very disparate and incompatible. Even Luann Martino's work in front of me, which involves a sort of suggested compression of time, space, and materials in a kind of a unique way, and the relationship of her work to the confined space that we find Eleanor Bond's two paintings in. Even if you look at what's then juxtapositioned with Eleanor Bond, her sort of examination of a confined space, institutional space, just, you know, 10 meters away is, or less, 5 meters away is Jeff Fennell's work, which also deals with repressive institutions and the way they affect individuals and this sort of social bond that we think we've developed, you know, on a very liberal and elevated level in Canada, and how absolutely fragile and tenuous it all is. Those are very close by, but very different bodies of work, but dealing with institutions in the same way as Christine Davis is dealing with the institution of language and how we will never comprehend fully in French or English the same texts. So again, one sort of level of understanding after another is, I don't know, to me, available. And I didn't really think about these levels of understanding before actually being able to walk through 2 or 3 times the exhibition spaces and sort of think about what's happened. I don't think you can ever I don't think you can plan so carefully as to like bring those relationships out between artists, sensibilities, between the works themselves. I think one does the research, as much research as you have time to comprehend a context, and then to some extent you have to leave that behind. You sort of throw yourself into a mixing board onto a mixing board. I think it's more of an intuitive sort of mixing that goes on.